Welcome into episode 78 of the Level Flight podcast. My name is Connor. I've got Brian and Elliott here with me today. We've got a full crew, fellas. How are we doing?
I'm doing great. Still riding that high of the win on Tuesday night. And boy, are we going to talk about that today.
Doing as good as you can be. I mean, we're also getting towards the end of the term here for school. So, a little bit of panic, but it is what it is. We can relish in Jets victories. How about we do that?
Yeah, the frauds did it again on Tuesday night. They went into MSG and beat a pretty good team. Let's talk about that game. What a game it was. It was probably up there, probably a top 5 game in terms of most impressive wins on the year for the Jets. Not just because they went into MSG and beat the Rangers. It was how they beat them. It's not like they dominated the game from start to finish or anything like that, but they definitely won that game. And Connor Hellebuyck was fantastic. But Brian, I'll start with you. The win against the Rangers, obviously Scheifele and Hellebuyck were at the forefront, but what stood out for you?
What stood out to me was the only line that truly won their minutes in terms of underlying numbers was the Scheifele line. And that has not happened in months when it's been a combo of Connor Scheifele and someone not named Nikolai Ehlers. And they went out there, and for the most part, I think they played the Rangers top line with Zibanejad, Kreider, and Roslovic, and they absolutely dominated. And obviously, Scheifele gets a hat trick, but they stepped up when they really needed to, and it led the Jets to victory because the second line for the Rangers with Panarin on it absolutely bared down on the Lowry line. And normally it's them picking up the slack, but no, that top line was there, and they were, stunning in terms of it was such a switch from what the normal, behavior of theirs is. So I will take that every single time and twice on Sundays.
Elliott, what stood out to you?
Other than Mark Scheifele having a game, I just thought the Jets did really well in, obviously the guys and I were talking about it. I don't think the Jets dominated this game per se, but they had control. And I think we haven't seen them do that against a good opponent in quite a while. Normally it's been them kind of chasing the game. I never really felt like they were chasing at any point. Like, they were on top of the Rangers. They did their job. They went out, they controlled play, they made sure that they were on top of their opponent, which was nice to see. I think that's really, as I'm going to make it simple for this episode, I think. I don't think you can really take it other than chalk it up as a good victory for the Jets. They did their thing. Yeah. They made sure. Obviously, you're going to hear the people go, oh, well, it was close there at the end and whatever, and the Rangers scored and they made it interesting. That's great. Yeah. Didn't matter. The Jets had locked up the win. I never felt like, oh God, they're gonna blow. As soon as I opened my phone after they made it 3-2, my entire timeline was, oh God, they're gonna blow the lead. It's gonna be so terrible. And it's like, okay, let's all calm down here. They've been in control for 57 minutes at this point. Let's calm it down. The Rangers score. They're a good team, and the Jets ice the game. Just. Yeah. Wipe your hands, move on. It was a good game.
And I think part of that too, because I saw that too, and I saw people kind of feeling that way in the final minutes, and I kind of felt that way too, but I think it's more PTSD from years past, because the Jets this year have actually been like a dominant third period team. Their goal differential in the third period, their expected goal differential in the third period is all among the NHL's elite, and that they're not blowing leads. They're actually coming back on teams like the Carolina game and the Buffalo game. They're flipping the script in a way in that sense. But yeah, this game to me, Mark Scheifele, his best game of the season, I'd say. I mean, hat trick at MSG. Brian, you said it. Their line actually carried play in terms of expected goals, which we don't see them do that very often. But yeah, him and Connor Hellebuyck takes you back to that Thanksgiving Monday. And the trajectory of this franchise, because you play a team like like I was about to say a team like MSG. You play a team like New York inside MSG, and those two guys come up as big as they did. That's the recipe for success right there. And I don't know. Was there anything else besides Scheifele and Hellebuck and what we've touched on? I have some takes coming from the game, but from the actual game itself. Do you guys have anything else, Brian?
I wanted to just mention the fact that it has been a long time since there was a period that exciting that didn't result in a goal in that first
Yeah.
period.
Good
Yeah.
point.
Like, especially usually when the period is that exciting, when the Jets are involved, it's something weird happens. Like I always find that like when it's high event like that, it usually doesn't favor them.
Yeah.
So much was happening, multiple breakaways, multiple, odd man rushes, big saves. Everything was happening and no goals came out of it. And all it was just a fantastic period between two incredible teams. And they showed why this stage, and I honestly think that it really got a lot of people on board with the whole idea of Jets Rangers Stanley Cup final talk.
Oh yeah.
I saw that everywhere. And if that's what their games are going to look like, I may lose a few years off my life and might end up in the hospital after, but sign me up.
Yeah, I agree. Like that first period was unbelievable. I tweeted at the end of it that it was one of the best periods of hockey we've seen this year in terms of entertainment value. People were tweeting out like Hellebuck versus Shesterkin. This is incredible because it was end-to-end action, but like you said, it was 0-0. And then the Jets to start that third or second period, Scheifele gets the goal off the rebound. Kyle Connor gets one on the power play, puck in his feet, impossible angle. For Kyle Connor's issues, my God,
scores.
that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like that angle was
like the
unreal.
goal line.
Like rolling puck from the goal line. That was ridiculous.
Definition of outscoring your own problems, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Like
Kyle Connor,
I'm pretty sure, just to continue that really quickly, I'm pretty sure, and I know Murad Atesh listens to the pod, but he can correct me if I'm wrong on Twitter. I'm pretty sure he literally tweeted out saying Kyle Connor needs to do something other than score goals because he can't win a board battle. And I'm pretty sure on the ensuing power play, like not even maybe a minute or two after that, he scored on the power play. So, I mean, when he does stuff like that, you kind of forget about all the other stuff that you get mad at him for. So
that's what makes him such an elite talent. Like he has his issues, and those are well documented on this podcast. His board battles, his defensive play, things of that nature, and like you said, you just kind of forget about it when he scores a goal like that, because how many players in the league can do that? Can just take a puck that's rolling in their feet and one time it from that angle. He's special, and the power play is also special. I was tuning into Winnipeg Sports Talk today, and Huss was bringing up the point that the Jets power play was 15% before they acquired Monahan, which was like 23rd in the league. Since they've acquired Monahan, it's 31.5%, and that's second in the NHL since they've acquired Monahan. Like unbelievable. Like turnaround for the power play. Brian, what have you seen from sorry, hold on.
No, we're keeping
I honestly didn't see that.
We're keeping this in. So to pull back the curtain a little bit here, there on StreamYard, the software we record on, this is comedy. There's a private chat function that we often use to talk to each other while we're talking, and just so we kind of know if we want to take it in a certain direction. And I had previously mentioned the power play. I didn't say this, but I actually was going to say that exact same thing that you just said, Connor, about the whole Monahan effect. But I asked if we were going to talk about the power play later in the episode. Elliott responded, we could. Connor didn't see it and went flying into it. I said, or now. And so, yeah, that's where we're at. But to answer your question, Connor,
the Monahan effect,
the Monahan effect, that's your behind the scenes section of Level Flight episode 78. So
absolutely.
My thoughts though on the Monahan thing are he is the precise definition of a target, right? Like he gets the attention of the other players on the other team that are just trying to figure out who do we cover most.
Yeah.
And you can't always cover everyone. So at some point or another, either he's going to become available, Scheifele, Connor, whoever. And by having that just additional threat on the power play, you're seeing it work where guys are finding some open space. And, Toffoli plays a similar game down low as to what Gabe Vilardi did, which is when that was another thing that changed, was doing a lot of movement down near the net. So you have a guy playing net front or a little bit lower. And so Vilardi was doing that. He was facilitating. And then Toffoli came in and immediately stepped into that role there. And it's working. So we're seeing the effects of one having an additional target on the on the backs of the Jets that you just can't cover if you've only got one extra guy on the ice. And then you've also got a guy like Toffoli who knows how to, also that's adding another threat down low as well, but who knows how to facilitate from, down near the net. So it's a perfect storm of what's creating the successes here. And we talked for, I would say, probably upwards of an hour over the several episodes that we've talked about the power play. Like if you put them all together, that would be an hour-long episode.
Yeah.
The whole thing for us was you can't have both a bad penalty kill and a bad power play if you want to be a Stanley Cup contender. The power play is performing almost as high as the Florida Panthers over that time, who were at 33.3%.
Yeah.
So I think that this is the step that everyone was waiting for.
We even said, like, if they got to league average and combined it with their 5-on-5 play, that would be fantastic. Like, that would be, they could win a few playoff rounds and Hellebuck could steal them a few. Now they've gone a whole nother level. They're one of the best power plays in the league. And it's like, okay, well, whatever. Last thing I want to talk about before break, and I want both your guys' thoughts on this. We spent a lot of the last couple episodes kind of panicking in a way about the Jets' inability to beat playoff teams, their inconsistencies. They're 3-8, or they were 3-8 before this game against the Rangers, against playoff teams since January 1st. Is that concern gone for you guys? Elliott, I'll start with you. Elliott's lagging. So
this is an all-time episode here.
Really pull back.
This might also rival. There was another episode where we had tons of lag. I don't know what that was. It was as soon as you were going to ask me, I had a feeling it was going to be me. So my thoughts, I'm going to say not really. Like I still have a feeling, just because they're still, even with this when they're 4-8, right? Like if they let's say had been like 5-1 and then over their last so-and-so were at a under 500 record and their total record on the season was like, let's say, I don't know, like 6 and what, so they played 12 technically against playoff teams. So let's say they were 6-6 or something and they've just been on a cold slide. Okay, yeah. But they've been overall throughout a good chunk of the season not very good against playoff teams. We will see, depending on how the rest of this week, like you look at the rest of their schedule. If they do better this week than they have over the past chunk of the season, then okay, yeah, fine. Like we can put that to bed. I think we need to wait a little bit longer to put it to bed than we'd probably like. But yeah, I'm still slightly concerned, but it's nothing to the point of like I'm panicking. It's still like, well, they beat the Rangers, good team, but can they do it again? Right? Like, and you have to, if you're going to be in the playoffs and you're going to contend in the playoffs, you have to play a good team, beat them, and then do that 3 more times, multiple times, right? So that's all my thought process is. And obviously I get, right, Connor, you mentioned it, Hellebuck can go on a heater. The Jets could go on an absolute heater and just roll somebody in the first round just based off of whatever the situation is. But just looking at their sample size and their resume so far, I'm still slightly concerned.
Okay. Brian, I'll let you go, then I'll wrap it before break.
Yeah. My optics on this have changed where I mentioned both on LP Live and on Tuesday's episode that if the Jets beat the Rangers, my concerns of them not being able to beat playoff opponents would be put to bed. And I think that's true, but I feel like my optics on it were they couldn't properly deal with the stage of playing these incredible teams. And, Hockey Night in Canada against Vancouver, they get thrashed. Go into Dallas against a team that you're competing with, get absolutely, rolled. And then there's the Nashville game where it's the hottest team in the league, and that coming in. The Jets just went into MSG and beat the second best team in the Eastern Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's fairly easy to say that it's not about the stage of things anymore. Maybe it's stylistically certain teams just play them better. Like both Vancouver and Nashville play very fast, and they play very north-south, which they can sometimes get past the defenders. I think we can also agree that, especially that Vancouver game, the Jets looked gassed. It didn't look like them at all. There was at least moments in that Nashville game where you kind of saw some of the fabric of what makes the Jets. But that Vancouver game at this point, it's almost a write-off in terms of I didn't see the Jets that night. But going into MSG and beating the Rangers on the biggest stage, really, because everyone was talking about it. It was a massive, massive talking point. And I think that puts the optics of things to bed. And I think the only thing they now have to worry about is those good teams who know how to play them. That's what I'm concerned about, because the Rangers struggled against, some guys that maybe played differently against, Nashville or Vancouver, but they played very well against the Rangers. And sometimes that's just how it goes. Sometimes your team plays different teams better than they do the others. And I don't think it's about their standing in the league. I think it's just style. So I'm not concerned about the playoff team thing. I'm just concerned about that certain teams have figured out the Jets' weaknesses.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, but where I'm at with this is you brought up the fact that maybe they looked fatigued against Vancouver, against Nashville. I think we have to take into account that this is a team that has been dealing with the flu bug for over a month. And there's no one, as we know, that is sick right now. And they just went in and put up maybe their best performance in a month. This concern for me isn't gone, because again, if they lay 2 eggs on the weekend and lose to the Capitals and Islanders by a combined score of 10-0, then yeah, this concern is back. But so in that sense, it's not gone. But I think logically, assuming the Jets don't completely crap the bed over the weekend, I think this concern is all but gone for me. The win on Tuesday night had such a big feeling to it, such an emotional impact.
Felt like a playoff
against
game.
New York.
Yeah,
it absolutely. In that stage, Connor Hellebuyck, not a man of many words in the post game, but even he admitted, when you come into a building like that and it feels as energetic as it was, it has a bigger feel to it. And I think that proved that the Jets can beat playoff teams. Yes, they're 3-8, but I don't think, or 4-8 now, but I don't think that record it is going to be a concern down the stretch from here forward. Sure, it was 3-8 before the Rangers game, but I think from here forward, it's going to be just fine. And again, we're talking about the team with 39 regulation wins. That's number 1 in the NHL. Second best is 37. Wild. Yeah. So I think this concern for me is all but gone, because the Jets are a really good hockey team, and they added Monahan and Toffoli this year. And then you come into this game against New York on the road. This is a statement win. They actually won the right way, if you want to use those terms. The process was right. They didn't just let Hellebuyck make 500 saves, all grade A chances, and we won. Yeah, there you go. And another part to this, and then we'll go to break. But people talked about, they played well over the weekend against Anaheim and Columbus, but it was Anaheim and Columbus. Well, you want to know the difference between this year's team and last year's? Last year's team would have beat both of them 3-2 in overtime and gone, we won. Great. No, they didn't even give them a shred of hope, and they buried them 12-1 over the 2 games, and then followed it up by beating an actual good team on the same road trip. I think that is a sign that this team has turned a corner. They've maybe gotten over this flu bug. The additions are gelling. They're healthy. minus Gabriel Velarde, like I think this is the healthiest they've been all year. And Connor Hellbuck is playing out of his mind. So I think that concern is all but gone for me. That's where my headset is at. I just think we should have touched on that before break here because we did spend a lot of time talking about that the last couple episodes. Let's head to break. We're going to hear a word from DraftKings. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the Western Conference playoff picture as a whole, who the Jets might play in the first round, who we're most scared of, who we're least scared of. There's a lot of contending teams in the West, so that'll be a fun conversation. Stick around after this word from DraftKings.
We know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with code THPN. New customers bet $5 on the NHL and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved.
And welcome back into episode 78 of the Level Flight podcast. Thank you once again to DraftKings for sponsoring this episode. And before we get into the big picture playoff thing that we were going to talk about, we should mention that Scott Arniel was the acting head coach for the Jets on Tuesday night. Because Rick Bowness is away from the club right now, he underwent a minor medical procedure, that's what the team's calling it, and was sent back to Winnipeg to be further evaluated, further treated after undergoing that procedure. And then Scott Arniel later said that he might even join the team on the road trip at the end here. It sounds like he won't be joining them for tomorrow or tonight's game when you're hearing this game against the New Jersey Devils. But that is relatively good news that it doesn't seem too serious and he could join the team very soon. But I think we should just update people on that before we get into the big picture stuff. Let's get into that now. The Jets are, like I said, the number one team in the NHL in regulation wins. But teams in the West are keeping up because it's an absolute dogfight at the top of the Central between Winnipeg, Dallas, and Colorado. The Pacific, you've got Vegas, or they're in a wild card spot, I guess, and they're the first team I said. You got Vancouver, Edmonton, LA, Nashville's hasn't lost since mid-February. There's a lot of good teams in the West. So we talked about this after the trade deadline with Jacob Stoller, which teams we were most concerned of from a Jets point of view. Brian wasn't here for that, so I'll start with you. And things have changed over those last 12 days. So where are you at? Which team scares you the most going into the playoffs? And maybe one that scares you the most, but the Jets might not play in the first round, and then the scariest first round opponent in your eyes.
So my fear is that the Jets have to play one of Colorado or Dallas, which is why for me it's the biggest thing in the entire world for the Jets to win the Central, because that forces the two of those teams to go ahead and beat the hell out of each other for a 7-game series and then limp their way, hopefully, to Winnipeg. I think it was lopsided in how I thought about it beforehand, where I was like far and away Dallas is the team that I am most concerned about. I know that's what was mentioned a lot in the episode that I wasn't on, but I thought the same thing. Colorado, with their additions and, some guys getting healthy, some guys moving around, they've won 7 games in a row. And they look like the Avs that we were all anticipating. Alex Georgiev hasn't been terrible as of late, which I mean, he's been very up and down. And 7 straight wins for them, keeping pace with the Jets. So I think they're tied right now with the Jets on the top with 93 points, right?
I believe the Jets overtook, or wait, the Avs did play last night. Yes, I believe you're correct.
So Jets still lead in overall points percentage, but they also lead the head-to-head matchup, I believe.
Yeah.
So that
2-0.
matters a lot. But no, so like in terms of possible first round opponents, it's either of them if the Jets drop into the second spot. I would be concerned about Nashville with how they played, because they're possibly getting close to being almost at this point almost locked into that first wild card spot. And the Jets are currently behind Vancouver for that top spot in the West, which would matter then because then they would play a Vegas team that doesn't seem to have any sense of direction. They've been struggling mightily, but yeah, I mean, it's weird that I would say this, but I would much, if I had to choose the opponent, I would like to finish tops in the conference and play Vegas because they seem to have the most question marks.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. And there's one thing that I want to say here. I hear people all the time, like on Nashville, people say like, oh, they haven't lost since February. And then the common saying that comes up is they're getting hot at the right time. Are they? It's March.
There's still a month left.
Okay. Yeah. Like they haven't lost since February, but it's March.
Someone could get hurt.
Around. They could go right back to mediocre over the final 10 games. Then they get
Soros could
right
tear his ACL or something, and then everything's
so
just gone.
Quote me if I'm wrong. Didn't they do that last year? Didn't they do this exact same thing where they got hot in March? They made a playoff push.
Not this hot,
but like, they were hot. They were on the Jets.
They sold though.
Well, but still, they sold. They got hot. They were chasing the Jets. And I remember, and then they fell, and then obviously the Jets also collapsed. But then the Jets rebounded with like 2 weeks left in the season, and Nashville went ice cold. So, like, the exact same thing could happen this year. Yes, I know it's a little bit different with Nashville being way more hot this year and the Jets also being in a different position. But it could still happen. Like, obviously, both situations, the Jets maybe not happen, but with the Predators, it could still happen. They could get absolutely cold and then fall way off the pace, right? Like, they could just disappear.
And you know what? If they go 30-2 into the playoffs, sure, they're getting hot at the right time. Like, I just don't think that not losing a game from February to March, the middle of each month, is, quote, getting hot at the right time. I think that's a misuse of that term, because there are teams that get hot at the right time. There are teams that over their last 6 games, they win 6 straight. And it's like, okay, here we go. And then going into the first round, it's like they're hot at the right time, genuinely. This is not the right time. Like, I don't know, like, whatever. If Nashville lost 4 straight games coming up, they could still have time to get hot at the right time and then win a playoff series. Like, It's just, I don't like that term, but I hear that a lot, which kind of makes no sense to me. Anyways, as for me, the team I'm most scared about, we said it, both Elliott and I said it, it was Dallas. Jacob said it as well. Dallas feels like the favorite in the West. That has changed for me. Dallas doesn't, like, Colorado, I think, is the scariest team now. It's definitely going into the playoffs going to be one of Dallas or Colorado that I'm most, like, quote, worried about. Vancouver and their inexperience doesn't really do it for me. I know they're the best team in the West, or by points, not points percentage. That's Winnipeg. But I don't know. Like, it feels like their goaltending's there, but Hellebuck's better. And it feels like their inexperience might play a factor in that. So we'll see on Vancouver. It's not like I'm not saying they need to prove more to me. I'm not completely sold on them as a playoff winning team quite yet. And then Colorado, they've done it before. Dallas, they did it last year. They went to the Western Conference Final. Edmonton, I think they have depth issues. Vegas, they've had issues. For me, it's Colorado. Elliott, who is it for you?
I'm just going to kind of make a blanket statement here. Playing in the Western Conference sucks. I think that's really what this comes down to. It's like, do you want poison A or poison B? You're dying either way, but it's how would you like to die at this point? I don't know, man. If you want to talk getting hot at the right time, what if Vegas gets hot? They have the talent, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I don't want to go back to that statement, but like, that's what it is. All of these teams have talent. There's not like, normally when you look at the playoff picture, normally seeds 7 and 8 have holes and they kind of like
Yeah.
fall into a playoff spot, and it's like, oh well, okay, well we want those opponents because they should be theoretically easier to beat. I know it's professional sports, so like calm down.
Well, still,
but still. But this year it's like, okay, well, it's a pick your poison situation here. Like it's you either get Vegas, who yes have had their issues, but they're loaded. Like they have talent, they can maybe figure it out. You either get McDavid or Draisaitl. Like great, I don't want either of those players, even if they were on separate teams. And then Nashville, obviously, yes, I know the whole hot cold thing, but they have a good goaltender. Like the Jets have been stoned by a good goaltender before. Like that can happen, right? Like you look at everybody who's in the playoff race, and there really isn't a team where I'm like, I want that team. Like it's kind of like, well, I don't want Dallas or Colorado, but I mean, we're either if we're going for a cup, you got to play them at some point, right? Like you have to. The West runs through everybody else, right? Mm-hmm. And then you look at the other opponents potentially. It's let's say the Jets finish first in the Central. Who would that be right now? The other wildcard teams would be the Nashville or Vegas. Correct?
It'd be Nashville right now, just based on points.
Yes, but like Vegas continues to slide, you get Vegas, right? Or whatever the case is, like, or Vegas heats up, Nashville cools off, whatever that is.
Having said that, there's not a team in the West right now that if the playoffs started today, I wouldn't take Winnipeg.
Yeah,
just some would be more difficult than others. That's
absolutely.
That's kind of where I'm at. That's what I mean. Is like
if the season ended tomorrow, I think the Jets would be my favorite to come out of the West. Like them in Colorado would be a pick 'em. I think would be even odds if I was making the line.
I would say even odds between, essentially the entire top three of the Central.
Like Jake Ottinger's a sub 900 goaltender.
But I feel like the team in front of him makes up for it. It's different with some of the other teams where
not as much as a Colorado, in my opinion.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing with Colorado, though, is like I think that they have the talent to push themselves further, but we haven't seen their new additions as much with Georgiev just going out there and looking like a beer league guy they pulled off the street.
Hey man, Georgiev hasn't been much worse than Ottinger. If we're looking at numbers, like I don't know, and I just think I think they both have goaltending issues. I have more faith in Ottinger in the playoffs, and I think Colorado has more high-end talent to overcome a goaltender giving up 4 goals on 20 shots. Dallas, I don't think has enough of that high-end talent. Yes, they have.
Jason think they play the playoff style though that might benefit.
Absolutely, them. But so do the Jets. Is my point. The Jets play a slow, grinding, playoff defensive style with an elite
for
goaltender.
The playoffs.
Absolutely. And Dallas plays that same style, but with a mediocre goaltender or one that's playing mediocre right now. So I don't know. My mindset has definitely shifted off of Dallas in the last week, and it's because my faith in Jake Ottinger is lower. He's been great in the games against the Jets and not great against anyone else. It's been the weirdest thing. So I think there's this kind of skewed perception in Winnipeg of Ottinger, but he's been bad this year. Straight up.
But what goaltender isn't good against the Jets? Who else is it? Wasn't Karel Shesterkin? Wasn't Vejmelka too?
Is he's a Vezina Trophy winning goalie against the Jets apparently.
Yeah,
my favorite Leafs goaltender. Just kidding. No, it's not.
It's Vesitoskala.
That's number 2. It is Cujo number 1. Reimers rounds out the top 3. Anywho, without me getting into my Leafs fandom from before 2011, just quickly, the last thing I wanted to say about all of this is I agree with you, Connor. Brian illustrated what my point was. There's nobody that I want. I still think the Jets have a better shot if I had to pick odds against any of these teams. It's just there is no team where I'm like, that's a first round matchup team that I want. Where I'm like, that's the team that I want because I know we're going to sweep them 4-0. Like, it's going to be a dogfight no matter who the Jets play. Like, I think that's what the problem is. It's going to be like Vegas, Nashville, Colorado, Dallas, whoever it is. This is going to sound crazy, but I'm predicting it right now. Whatever their first round matchup is, probably goes the distance. Like, it probably goes 6 or 7.
Yeah, that's tough to predict this far out because, again, like we said, Nashville could fall off a cliff from their hot streak. Vegas could not figure it out, and I'd take the Jets in like 5 if the series started
True.
today. If I'm being honest, like I don't know, I think as a Jets podcast and as we follow the Jets, we kind of underestimate to a sense. Like we know they're a great team, but the PTSD that I mentioned off the top that they're going to blow this lead in the third, and people say whatever, but we kind of take it for what they are. And right now, they're the team with the most amount of regulation wins as of March 20th in the NHL. So there's not like Nashville. Yes,
93 points with 14 games left.
They're
President's Trophy incoming.
They're as good as 17-18. Like that's
actually,
playoff success.
Technically, wouldn't their wins be better than 27? I'm pretty sure Dave Manu tweeted that out. I think he said something about like Jets got to certain. Along. Technically, they're further along, which we might have to have a discussion.
Their schedule gets pretty tough down the stretch here, so I don't know if they're gonna.
Well,
I don't know if they're gonna finish with 113. I think was the final number. Nashville finished with 114, but yeah, it's gonna be a fun race to the finish. A lot of playoff opponents, so that narrative can come back up if they start to struggle again. But until then, we will be keeping a close eye on tonight's game against the New Jersey Devils, the weekend game against the New York Islanders on Saturday, and then Sunday morning, LFP Live. Is that the 6th edition? I believe.
Yes.
We're gonna be hosting that 9 a.m. I believe it'll be 9 if there's a schedule change because the Jets do play at 11:30 a.m. that day. So if we might want to push it back or push it earlier, we will let you know. Stay glued to our socials at Level Flight WPG. But until then, thank you everyone for listening. We really appreciate it. This was episode 78 of the Level Flight podcast. Broke down the Jets beating the Rangers 4-2, outlined some Western Conference stuff, and we ran out of time and didn't even preview the Devils game. But come back Sunday.
We'll talk about it.
Yes, come back Sunday and we'll break down what happened, which is always more fun.
Tyler Toffoli revenge game.
Yes, exactly. And Colin Miller. He might get back in the lineup. We'll see. I would assume he gets back in. Whatever. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will see you Sunday. Join us 9 a.m. live on the Level Flight YouTube. Have a great couple days, everyone, and enjoy the games. See you.
Peace.